Okay, I want to talk about something in Luke chapter 12, verses 4 through 7. And look, this is a very interesting passage. Jesus says basically, don't be afraid of a person that can kill you. And that's it. He says, I'll show you who you should fear. The person you should fear is the one that after he can kill you, can send you to hell. And he's talking about God there. That is a sobering thought to think that, whoever you face in this world, they can only harm you so far, right? They can only send you to the grave. Jesus says we should not be afraid of that person. Okay? We need to think that through. We need to live with that reality. But he says we do need to have a fear of God because God can send you to hell. I know a lot of people have a real difficult time with this concept of fearing God, but understand this. It's the same thing. It's the same thing as understanding power and authority, okay? That God has the power and the authority to be the final judge, right? It's a sobering reality. But understand this, he says again after this, something else we should not fear. After he says these two statements, he says this other thing. And I think in context, all of this is super important. And then he says this, he says, are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 copper coins, and not one of them is forgotten before God? God, here Jesus is saying, basically, God even remembers the individual sparrows, okay? And he says, but the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Do not fear, therefore, you are of more value than many sparrows. So he says we should fear God, but at the same time, we understand who he is. We understand, like, he notices when the sparrows fall out of the sky or when they are caught and killed or whatever. He knows these things. And likewise, he knows the number of our hairs of our head, right? And he says, so don't be afraid. We have to understand that God observes us. He has established a place for us to be saved. And he says, because of that, do not fear. This is a different thing. He's saying, basically, the Lord's giving us this indication that you're not going to be shut out of access to God if you're seeking God. You don't have to be afraid of that. That type of fear, the unrational fear that just assumes God is a monster or something like that, that has nothing to do with his word, that's wrong. And he's saying, don't get caught up in that. You need to know who God is. You need to understand how he is, how he loves people, how he acts towards us. You need to understand that and not be afraid of the things that God said he wouldn't do. You know, all the time people ask me, well, I did this, I did that. I did a bunch of bad things. I mean, can I be saved? And I always say the same thing to them. I always say, hey, whoever calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved. It's that simple. So we need to heed the word that Jesus said and not be afraid, in the sense that God loves us, okay? We don't have to be afraid that he's just going to cast us out for no reason. We don't have to be afraid that he wants us to be in hell. That's exactly what Jesus is saying here. That's not his desire. But we should fear the reality that God has that authority, that he is not mocked. We will reap what we sow. Our life needs to be surrendered to him, okay? But he does love those who are walking in truth. He loves those who have given their life to him. So That's Luke chapter 12, the first verse 4 through 7. I hope that blesses you today. May the Lord richly bless you. Thank you so much for watching the video. And please leave me a comment. Also, if you haven't yet, like and subscribe. And I'll see you again tomorrow. God bless.